Okay, so good afternoon, Dr. Frank. I'm Abhivyakti Gupta. I'm a volunteer with Pratisandhi. We are a non-profit working towards spreading sexual health awareness. And we believe that everybody has a right to have access to information free from judgment in a manner that helps them understand that the choices that are available for them. And seeing that others are out there like Shiros doing the same thing, it gives us immense pleasure. And we think that you're doing a commendable job providing all the services and sharing all your expertise and knowledge with the women who are unable to receive help otherwise.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and chat with you about women's sexual and reproductive health. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. I've been working in that space for around 4 years now.
Okay.
So I have studied medicine and I have received a certification from the US Foreign Commission. And after that, I came to Delhi 4 years ago to work in the startup industry. So my first job, I was working with young moms and new moms and relating to like healthcare worries that they may have when they become a mom for the first time.
Yeah.
And for the past 1.5 year, I have been working with Shiros, and my space over here is basically concentrated on working for women's health, and that could be like anything, physical and mental health. And it's been a pretty amazing 2 years so far, and looking forward to much more things to work in this space. And meeting wonderful people like y'all also working in this space has made this job even more fun, I would say.
Yeah, I know. It's so good to see that we are growing and working towards making this society a more comfortable place for our women.
Shiros is basically a women's only network online, and Shiros is like an ecosystem, I would say, for women, like different facets of a woman, like being a homemaker, career, her relationships, things that she enjoys, like cooking, gardening, art. She can find a little bit of everything on Shiros. Uh, so since I'm a counselor and a consultant, so I'll speak a little bit about the health part on Shiros. So women come and ask their questions because it's a non-judgmental safe space. So that is basically what Shiros thrives on, being non-judgmental, high empathy. So being able to ask the questions about your health, which is basically a very private matter for most women.
Yeah.
So knowing that you have a space online, which, as we know, internet was ideally and initially built by men. So to know that you have a space where you can talk about yourself as a woman is basically what Shiros is. So being a woman myself is one of the main reasons as to why I love working with Shiros, because I know that women feel more comfortable talking to another woman. Although we'd like to change that over time, that women should be comfortable talking to men
Yeah.
or women, but it's reassuring to know that in my own way I'm able to help women and give them like the freedom to be themselves and discuss more about something as basic as their health, which is like an innate part of all of us.
I
So that is
agree.
probably the reason why I enjoy working at Shields and why I joined Shields as well.
That's great to hear.
So let me, so since I just discussed Cheers is an
Yeah.
online platform,
Yeah.
so now all of us are online. We are
Yeah.
talking to each other
Yeah.
online.
Totally.
So what I have realized, like many people who have just started working from home have like took 2 weeks to adjust to working at home and all. But people like us, we've been like on our toes for the past, ever since lockdown
Yeah.
started. So basically, Shields has been seeing a huge influx of questions because now all women are at home and all women want to know, like, because now either you're stuck with your partner where you want to know questions about your relationship, or your children are at home and can't visit a doctor, so you're coming to Shields again and asking about your children. And women are asking about themselves because they want to know about their health. They can't go to a doctor. They want to
Yeah.
know about their kids' health because they can't take their kids to a doctor. And now they're stuck with their husbands or their partners or They have friends at home all the time. How do I deal with them? So basically, a place like Shiro's is somewhere where they get to be themselves away from who they are as with their family or the people that they're staying with. So yeah, I mean, knowing that something like Shiro's exists gives a lot of women like solace and reassurance to know that they can talk more openly and they don't really have to leave their home to be that. They can be that by just being within their safe space.
So it's like talking to your friends and laying the heat off of your day or whatever, right? Something like
Yes,
that.
definitely. That's a great way to put it. Yes, definitely.
Okay.
There are a couple of things. Now that we are in the lockdown and having this discussion during lockdown, I will start with menstrual health.
Yeah.
Menstrual health is something that is innate to women, that not everyone experiences it. So, menstrual health is the one thing, even though it's innate to women, women do not take it as a priority. Women tend to neglect it because that's how we've been raised.
Yeah.
We've been raised to think that this is something that should not be talked about, that should not be discussed even with our family members, even if they are women, it should not be discussed with them. And should definitely not be discussed outside our homes. So I would start with menstrual health because that is the one thing that I feel that women need to start doing more about. And those are difficulties. If they don't talk about, they won't find a solution. So one of the key things I've observed during this lockdown is that the delays in menstruation has increased. Like almost on a daily basis, I get minimum of 2 questions on like various like Shiros, and even like my Twitter account is flooded with tons of questions relating to delay in menstrual periods, which is highly stress related during this lockdown. But the thing what I've observed is people have no idea that it's a common thing. Many women are experiencing it. It's not just one woman, two women. Many women are experiencing it. So women do not know that stress can be a reason why a period can be delayed, which is something so basic.
Yeah.
So that is why talking more about menstruation, getting it assessed when you have a problem is also so important. Number two would be mental health. That is another discussion we are having a lot of these days.
Yeah.
Mental health, it's here, there, and everywhere. So that is another thing that women need to talk about a lot more, is the different kinds of aspects of their life that affect their mental health. And that would include their relationships, career, their housework, their relationship with their other family. So these all have a direct impact on a woman's mental health. And while we toss around words like anxiety, depression, etc., women need to identify more how their life is probably affecting these aspects of their mental health.
Yeah.
So being able to identify the signs is so important. So that is why I would suggest that that is the second part of women's health that needs attention. Then we have nutritional deficiencies. That's something very rarely discussed, but
Yeah.
almost all women know about anemia, know we have vitamin D deficiency, know we have calcium deficiency, but none of us know how to identify it. None of us know that most women have it.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things I think women need to pay attention with, because many women shy away from taking supplements. They're like, I don't want to take medicines, I don't want to take pills, but that is causing you long-term harm. Because after you cross menopause, things like calcium, vitamin D, etc., decrease like exponentially, and that's affecting your bone health and joint health, which like you would be like regret it. Oh, I didn't take care of it in my 30s, 20s, etc. And finally, I would like to add is the awareness of screening. So let me just explain that a little bit. Screening is for a whole bunch of different things, but I just want to talk about mainly cancer screening. Women are unaware that something as simple as a pap smear can help you identify cervical cancer and prevent it. Women are unaware that there is a vaccine for cervical cancer. So India is currently, because of lack of screening and vaccines, we have some of the highest numbers of cervical cancer rates in the world. And that goes for like even other cancers, which we will talk, like breast cancer and all. People are aware of. People are aware that they need to do these things. But something as simple as screening needs to be done more frequently, because it can prevent long-term and unfortunate circumstances that could be prevented if you got yourself screened. So the few things that I just mentioned were like menstrual health, mental health, nutritional deficiencies, and screening. So the one thing I discuss all the time on Shiro's, and actually more than discuss it, I put it out there for the women to tell me about it. So the question that I ask is, how often do you get yourself tested? Just a general question.
Yeah.
The one thing women don't know, and I wouldn't say only women, this applies to all of us. And since we are talking in India, I'd say everyone in India, is that we don't go to a doctor unless it becomes bad or worse or
I agree.
extremely untreatable.
Yeah, we think
So
it can be treated at home.
Yes. So my simple question to most people out there is, how often do you get tested? So people ideally in their late 20s should start going for yearly physicals, which include simple tests like cholesterol, anemia, vitamin D, vitamin B12, your blood pressure. These are very simple basic parameters. These simple basic parameters can tell you what further tests. Women, in addition, need to get a pap smear done every 2 years and need to get their thyroid screen also done, because these are very common in India to have hypothyroidism as a condition. So just get it done every year. Make it a routine. Like when you go to your doctor, schedule the next visit for the next year, and keep a reminder to get that done. So that's one of the easiest ways to know that you need something, is to like make it like a part of your routine that you do every year. Because the thing is, when you start creating awareness, you're focusing on just one part of your health. You're not focusing on your overall health. And my belief is that you need to focus on yourself as a whole, not just like, oh, I'm need to take care of my calcium, oh, I need to take care of my vitamin D, oh, I need to check out my thyroid because I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
So if you do a wholesome checkup, you know, like what aspects of your life you need to take care of, and at the end of it, most of it can be taken care of just by simple lifestyle changes. Like something like diabetes can be detected in the pre-stages before you even need to start taking medicines. But people wait till like symptoms start to like, oh, what do I do now? When you have to start taking medicine. So that is why it's best to get it started, and that too in your early 20s, when things can actually, you can start taking care of and like be aware of it. Because in your 30s and 40s, it's already too late. So I think if we start paying attention and focusing on young healthcare, we can make older healthcare more, like what you say, manageable, I would say. So that was based on a question I've been asked on more than one occasion, not just once.
Okay.
And it's not only about homemade abortions. Recently, I would say a couple of weeks ago, I got a question about a pregnancy test using Dettol.
Okay.
So yes, exactly. So what you need to, or we need to, as a society, realize is these are questions women ask because it's not normal for women to talk about it. It's not normal for women to talk about abortion. Not normal for a woman, like in a lockdown situation. Oh, I can't get a pregnancy kit. What do I do? So when we are faced with the question or the doubt that we can't talk about something, where do we go first? The internet.
Yeah.
That's where all the information is, where most of us get it from.
I agree.
So that is where you'll find information on homemade abortions, homemade pregnancy tests, pills, abortion pills, black market abortion pills. You find that also on the internet. And the third is back alley abortions. So back alley abortions is something where this is more common in rural areas.
Okay.
I would say rural India more than like in our area. For us here, the women get pills offline, so the problems are different on both sides.
Yeah.
So back alley abortions are basically the ones that midwives or untrained professionals conduct, so that the rest of the society doesn't know that the woman has had an abortion.
Okay.
So yeah, so these are some really serious issues that need to be talked about, and this where it stems from is the fact that there's stigma surrounding abortion.
Yeah.
Because we don't talk about something as simple as abortion, which is a basic right for a woman, basic healthcare right for a woman, and she needs access to abortion. We are still having discussions on what age women can go and get an abortion, who she has to take with parents, caregivers, and women are still worried if they go to a doctor, they're going to be treated with judgment. They're worried that if the doctor is a family physician, they're going to tell the parents.
Yeah.
So these are very some basic concerns that we have at this that makes something like abortion inaccessible to a woman. And we need to like consider these things. As you might be surprised, but I'm not very surprised, because this is something I, in my line of work, I see all the time, and it's very
Yeah.
saddening, because I don't want women to face what you say, die because of a bad abortion or
Yeah.
bleeding or something.
Yeah.
Abortion makes up a huge percentage of maternal mortality, which is the deaths of mothers. So, and that is because of inaccess to safe abortion. So something like this needs to be talked about, and not only by women. The thing is, when we talk about women abortions, we only consider it's a woman's job to get an abortion, but it took two to have the abortion, to get pregnant, right? So even men need to be more supportive about the rights that women require when it comes to something as basic as abortion itself. And that goes for many other things, but right now, since we're talking about abortion, I just want to say that it's not only confined to just women, because this problem affects the society at large. Because when you lose one woman, you're like, she contributed to the society in some way, and something as simple as not having access to safe abortion has limited her contribution to society. While there are many stipulations and terms and conditions, I would say, to getting an abortion, it's good to know that women can go and get an abortion at a clinic. And there are non-judgmental practitioners today that know that this is a basic right for women. So my advice is, like, if you do go to a clinic, if you feel that this doctor is not good for you, you can always go to another one. You do not need to feel unsafe or face judgment or anything like that, because there are many practitioners who do not judge you when you go there. So this usually happens for women that are 10 plus weeks pregnant. They would ideally need a surgical abortion. 10 and less would be a medical abortion. For that also, you need to go to your medical practitioner, and they will check your last menstrual period and accordingly calculate as to whether you need a medical. So these are the pills that we dispense for the women to have a medical abortion. So based on how long you're far along, the type of abortion that you need will differ. It's either surgical or it's a medical abortion. One more thing I'd like to talk about is emergency contraception, which everyone knows about. Most people know more about that than other forms of contraception. That is not something that should be taken as a form of contraception. Essentially, it is to prevent pregnancy, and it should be taken within 72 hours after sexual intercourse. But it's not something that you take regularly. You take it only if your primary mode of contraception has failed.
Okay.
So women should not stock up on emergency contraception, like, oh, I will deal with it when the time comes. But that's not the right way to go about it. So for me, that is also an important part of discussion when we talk about abortion, because women sometimes assume that that pill can be used for abortion, which is, you should not do that either. You should go to a doctor. If you do find out you're pregnant, go to a doctor. If you're not comfortable with a doctor, go to another doctor. But do not put your health on the line, because these have long-term repercussions, which you should never like take a chance with. I will just break it down a little bit for easier consumption. So gender and narrative. Gender is basically your assigned gender. Let's just keep it as assigned gender. That's because that's how we've been trained and conditioned to believe that your gender is just basically what you've been assigned to. And narrative is basically the story around gender. It's the tale that describes your gender. So over the years, where we've been getting our gender narratives are from books, movies, basically pop culture that's out there. That tells us that these are the stereotypical roles that either, let's take, for example, since we're talking more about women, let's take about women. So I came across this very interesting concept relating to gender narrative, where in which gender narrative has been influenced into people over the years. So the first one was preparation. Preparation is basically
Okay, I've resumed it.
okay. So as I was saying, since we're talking about women, I will just use the examples and references mostly pertaining to women. So yeah, I read an interesting concept when we were discussing about gender narratives recently, and they described it in like three different parts as to how we have been influenced by the social norms of what gender narrative basically is. So first one is preparation. Preparation is basically for our teens and young adults where they teach you what your gender ought to be doing. So that is something like a woman taking care of kids, their duty is to have children, take care of the house, cook, clean, etc., etc. The second one is prescription, which is basically for adults. So prescription is where you're telling the adults that this is what you ought to be doing, just reinforcing the idea that you were taught as a young kid that this is what you ought to do. So while you're a woman, and if you're a good housemaker, you reinforce the idea that, oh, you're good at taking care of your kids, or you keep such a clean house. So those kind of things. The third one was a reinscription. So reinscription is one where suppose a woman has gone diverted into her career and like doing great in it. Women will be told like, oh my goodness, you're doing a great job, etc., etc. And but they will still be put down if they're not running a good house or their kids are not being looked after, and maybe their husband being neglected, or he will tell, oh, you're neglecting me because you're doing this. So preparation, prescription, and reinscription. So this is something we have been conditioned with over the years, ever since we were little kids, that you have to do this. If you grow older and you do this, then you'll be more prosperous, and then you're like fulfilling your gender roles basically. So we need to realize that today gender narrative is changing on a daily basis, and gender narrative is not just what you say 0 to 1 category. It's a whole spectrum where people get to define who they are essentially and what they want to do based on their identity. So identity comes as a very important plug-in to gender narrative, because we realize that the social norms and what gender narrative has been told to us over the years has been conditioned as per what they considered social norms at that time.
Mm.
But today we are not that. Today a woman does not only have to be a housemaker. If she's not a housemaker, does not make her less of a woman. Same goes for man. If a man does not want to work, that does not make him less of a man.
Mm.
So, and it also goes for other individuals within the spectrum. Like you get to define your own gender narrative, and that is through an individual perspective and through a societal perspective. It does not have to be confined to just the plus or minus situation. It can be within the spectrum of the plus or minus.
Yeah.
So that is something I think people need to understand, that they do not need to confine themselves to definitions, or they do not need to confine themselves to what is expected of them. Yes, you will receive a lot of roadblocks along the way, people putting you down, but then you need to realize that there's many other people going on your journey. Find those people. Reach out to them, because they are the ones who are going to help you through your journey. So I get a lot of questions daily. For me, almost every one of them is intriguing and interesting, because for one main reason is because it's something women never did before, talk
Yes.
about their health.
Yeah.
So for me, receiving any sort of question, like I told you about the pregnancy test,
Yeah.
that was really interesting to me. Like, why would a woman actually think something like that? Like, where would she get information? And personally, I had to go and look it up, because I had no idea what a pregnancy
Yeah.
test with Dettol was, because they don't teach us that in medical school. So I had no idea. So I had to go and have a look at that. So yeah, so each and every case is kind of interesting. For me, more than what is troublesome, I like to remember the good ones. So especially the ones that really touch my heart are the moms, the new moms who catalog their journey on Sheroes. They will ask us, like, for all the 9 months, they'll be asking questions. What do I do in this month? I don't do this in this month. And right after the baby is born, oh, I don't get sleep all night. Is this normal? why is my baby not sleeping all night? So those are the ones that, even though I answer them all the time, each and every question is like different for me, and always brings a smile to my face, because it's nice to see women feeling comfortable with asking such a simple question. Because ideally, we would not even talk about if you're getting period cramps, and here someone's like, "Oh, I'm not getting sleep," so that's very, it makes me smile. So I like, for me, those are the more memorable ones. I try not to think more of the situations where women are struggling, but it's even great when they do come to us when they are struggling, because that's when you know you have succeeded for them to feel comfortable to ask you and don't feel that their question is stupid. That's the essence of any place should be like, my question is not stupid and someone's going to listen to it and help me. So yeah, these are some of the interesting, I would not say specific cases, but interesting scenarios that I see on shows where I get to help women. And it's more fun for me is when they come back with like another question, or they're like, "Oh, you helped me the last time," and it's nice to see that you can help me again. Those kind of things. So, mental health, what we need to realize is, as a society and us who are sitting on webinars these days, is that mental health is a privilege.
Yes.
It is not something that everyone can address. We are seeing a lot of the migrant workers, daily wage workers that are suffering during this lockdown. For them, mental health is really a privilege. We are the ones in our houses worried about our mental health, but that is not even like on their list. Even though that is something they're probably struggling with the most right now. They are more worried about food, getting home, etc., etc. So I would say that the first thing we need to realize is something like mental health, even though essential, for many, it's a privilege to be able to even talk about it. To address it is even more uh, like a special ability that you have. So I would say the first thing is to just basically talk about it, just like how you and I are talking about it, is to talk about it within our communities. Because once we start talking about it within our communities, it trickles down. Because then it is when people who come to clean our houses know that something like this is important. People who sell our vegetables know that something like this is important. So that is when it trickles down to all parts of our society. And it's not only considered a privilege at that point. And that goes to all kinds, all spectrum in the healthcare system. So for me, the main thing is just talking about it. And a lot of mental health concerns can be dealt with also just talking. You don't really need medicines for a lot of it. So knowing that you have a safe space to discuss it, like knowing that you are available for someone else to come and talk to, is a big deal. You don't even need to have a mental health professional for that. You just need to know, the person needs to know that, okay, I can come to you, I can have this discussion with you. And as an informed person, know like where you can have access to like a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or resources that can help people that might be less privileged, and how they can also receive help for mental health. So just like I said, mentioned a while earlier, that you should be consider your health as a whole. So that includes mental health. So if you know where to get your blood test done, you know where to go and ask, oh, my back is paining, which doctor to go to for that. So you need to know who I would go to if I have mental health concern. So that is something I think that's really important, is as an individual, be in the know. Don't be like in denial. Don't say that I have a mental health problem. Now, how do I deal with it? Know that you have to deal with it. Where do I go to deal with it? And your second part of the question was, how does it impact physical health, not taking care of our mental? So for women, and interestingly enough, not only for women, a lot of mental health presents as physical symptoms. Something as simple as pain, which we all try to find a source for. Oh, I have back pain, I have back pain. Yes, most likely it's your posture is not good, or you're not exercising sufficiently, and most of us are sitting down nowadays. Those are the most likely causes for back pain. But it can also be related to mental health. A lot of mental health is manifested as somatic symptoms. Somatic symptoms are basically physical symptoms, like pain, fatigue, menstrual irregularities can also be an underlying due to stress, due to
Yes.
stress related to your mental health. So these are some things I would recommend. Like if you consistently have fatigue and you have no idea why you have fatigue, what if your hemoglobin is perfect? What if you're eating well, but you don't know why you're tired all the time? So it could be something things need to be assessed, because mental health also causes physical symptoms. It does not necessarily, yes, it does affect your productivity, but for us as individuals who tend to neglect that, oh, maybe I'm just having a bad day, or maybe I'm just not as productive as I am, look for signs in your physical fitness where you might be falling short. That could also be an indication that you might need help with your mental health.
Okay, so basically self-awareness is the key to keeping your health okay.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
And
Because many of us don't even know, like basic stuff,
yeah,
don't even
I
know.
agree. And like you
Yeah.
said, that to trickle down the system, we need to start talking amongst ourselves. So it's like we have to break the stigma we have built around ourselves that, oh no, I can't talk about my mental health to anybody. Oh no,
Mm,
that person will think I'm crazy or something. So we need to break down that and feel comfortable in ourselves. And only then we can help
definitely.
everyone, right? Okay. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
I just wanted to,
Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
just wanted to
Sorry.
add something there. This thing is, I understand that it's tough to talk about it.
Yes.
So at that point, if you feel that the company you're with is like making you uncomfortable to talk about it, that's not the right company for you. You need to feel safe within your company.
Yes.
You need to surround yourself with positivity, because the road to recovery is usually the environment you're in. So
Yes.
that includes the people that you're surrounded by. It's a great question. Uh, so I would personally say, as an adult myself, we need to realize that the first ones to criticize anything, such things that happen, are the adults usually, and the people who are raising these children are the adults.
Yeah.
So people who need to be taking the responsibility are the adults. This is just my personal opinion, because we need to realize that what we are today is based on the way we have been brought up. So the
Yes,
same way the
absolutely.
kids who are growing up now is the environment that they're in right now. So we cannot point fingers. That's the one thing I want to put out there. We cannot say that it's your responsibility, it's your responsibility, he did that, she did that, etc., etc., because the pointing finger game will go on forever. So what are the next steps to bring reform? That's what we need to focus more on. We need to understand that this is a very ingrained problem within our society. It's not that we knew about it. It's not something new that has come. It's just that an incident has brought it to light, but it's always been there. So we need to realize that we need to fix our system at some point.
Yes.
We need to talk more about this. Like personally, when I was growing up, I could not talk about something like sex, etc., etc., with because that's how our society has been brought up, that these conversations are not a norm. And we need to make sure that these conversations are a norm, because that is when you have these conversations within a healthy environment and give open room for questions. Like it has to be a back and forth. It not has to be like you have to do this, you have to do that. Children should be open to ask questions. They should know that they can come back if they have a question later. They can come back if they have something that happened to them. They should be able to come back, because now since everything is online, parents
Yeah.
cannot monitor that 24/7.
Yeah.
You cannot monitor what your child is doing 24/7. It would be good if you discuss safe practices of using even online spaces. Parents need to be more informed about online spaces. Many parents don't even know what an Instagram is, or what
Yeah. Yeah.
you say a Twitter is, or
Yeah.
Snapchat is. So it's not that it's too much to know. It's just know about it, know what happens there. Because if you don't know, then you don't know what the threats are that face the children when they are on online spaces. So it's not only about this. There's like so many other things that can happen on online spaces, like bullying and stalking and harassment.
Yes.
These also can happen to young children. It does not necessarily happen to all.
Yeah.
And children can be groomed online. They can be groomed to for nefarious conditions. And so therefore it's very important to be in the know about that such kind of conversations are happening. You can't stop it. That the
Yeah.
solution is not stopping the conversations. It's more like bringing the conversations to more healthier environments where they can be, where children can question, where children know, where you know what's right and wrong and what's violation of a basic right. What essentially happened was violation of a basic right.
Yes.
You cannot. So people need to know that what basic rights are. There is a very thin line today to know what is a basic right of an individual and what is not a basic right. Because people believe that, oh, I have it means that it's not in violation of someone else, when it actually can be, because you're using it without someone else's consent.
Yes.
So something like that, something as simple as consent within an online and an offline spaces needs to be discussed more openly. So I will just start with something very simple concept. You highlighted a few things like access to healthcare. You highlighted violence at home. So basically, the safety of women in their own homes are questionable.
Yeah.
And the third one, is autonomy, basically for their body and the way to conduct themselves.
Yes.
So what we need to realize when it comes to these three things for every single individual is that it's a basic human right. People, access to healthcare is a basic human right. Be feeling safe in your space, in your house, is a basic human right. Autonomy to your body and the way you conduct it is a basic human right. So once people understand that this is a basic human right, and if you're doing something in violation of that, you're essentially violating a basic human right. So women, men, anyone needs to have basic human right to their body, to feeling safe in their spaces, and to healthcare. As for financial that you mentioned, I would say it. I would say another important basic right would be access to education regarding it. Many women are brought up with the concept that money and finances is a man's job.
Yes.
It's not a man's job. And when you grow up, you need to know how to manage your finances. You need to know that you're right to your finances. Even if you decide to be a homemaker, you need to have this discussion early on, like how do you manage the finances, how do you have your own finances, because it's very important for women to know that financial freedom is an essential part of their identity, not just a requirement. It's a part of your identity, because it knowing about it is so important. And that's something I love about Sheroes, because their women are actually taught, and we conduct a whole bunch of sessions teaching women on how to gain financial freedom, discuss investment options, and those kind of things. And these are mostly for women who work, are homemakers. So which is kind of interesting. It's an interesting concept. So so for me, when you discuss these kind of things, especially during lockdown, we're seeing huge number of cases of domestic violence, which is saddening. It's really saddening, because why are women not even safe in their own homes? Exactly. Why are children not even safe in their own homes? So that also again boils down to the fact that society has made it that way, that women need to not have their family at home the whole time to feel safe. Why does it have to be like that? She needs to essentially feel safe in her own home, because it's her home also. It's not just. So basically, it's again societal education and conditioning, and for us, people like you, me, and those who can have a voice to talk about it, to bring such issues to light, to make people understand that such things are happening. So many people do not even know, and don't even know what domestic violence is. I recently had a chat, and many people didn't know domestic violence does not only cover women. Women, even men can face domestic violence. Even the elderly abuse is like on the rise, and because they don't even have a voice, you don't even know about it. So domestic violence is a very nuanced concept, where it does not affect only one specific gender, because we talk about it so often, like people have this cute concept that it's a man abusing a woman, but it's actually essentially not like that. domestic violence is a very fluid concept where it can be anyone who's affected within a household, children, man, woman, elderly, whoever lives within the household. And ways to, again, it's to know how to report it, who to talk to, and to make your neighborhood a safe space. You should know that if you are facing domestic violence, you have your neighbors to go and talk to. You should know what numbers you can talk to. You should also, sometimes only children are the bystanders who get to see all of this. But children also need to know how to tackle it, who to call, go to your neighbors, try to distract the person, the perpetrator, those kind of things. So talking more about it, spreading information about it, creating communal awareness about it. Like it would be strange if I don't know if my neighbor is experiencing it, right?
Yes.
And that too, we live in the same place all the time. So it should be something that you're more like keen about, more in tune with your surroundings, to know that something like this is happening.
Yes.
So I would say it's more about awareness, talking about it more openly, to know that violence does not discriminate. It can happen with anybody.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
And yeah, and finally, healthcare. Healthcare services. Healthcare. Like, it took a pandemic to realize all the deficiencies within our healthcare system. And women are getting affected. There's a lot. Like, I've been a part of a couple of conversations over the past month discussing something as simple as abortion services, how that is being considered, whether it's essential or non-essential, which is kind of saddening that we have to even discuss something like that when it's something like a basic healthcare practice. So yeah, it is definitely affecting women a lot, because something they would ordinarily struggle to even just go to get tested, now they're like the second, third, fourth guessing themselves whether they should even like ask about it. So it is definitely affecting, but I would say there are a lot of healthcare professionals out there who are providing their services online, who are accessible at this point. So even if you don't know, talk to people in your circles, because they will probably know someone who's available online, or maybe guide you to someone, connect you with somebody. So talk to people in your circles. Don't second, third, fourth guess whether you need help. If you feel you need help, you obviously most likely do need help. So just talk about it within your circles.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, that's all for my questions. So thank you for sharing all your knowledge and expertise with it. I just feel so good after having this conversation with you. Like, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners will also feel the same. So is there anything that, or any advice that you would want to say out to everybody out there before we wrap up?
Okay. Yeah, it's been a great session. I got to talk a lot about many things that are quite close to my heart. So again, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
I would just like to close up by saying that trust your instincts. In most cases, you just have to trust your instincts when it comes to health, when it comes to basic self-care, when it comes to something as simple as, should I what you say, talk, reach out to somebody, and maybe I need some help with something as simple as that. Just trust your instincts, because most of the time it is right. Most of the time you do need help with something, and there are people more than willing to help. That's what I've realized over these past few years, is that places like Shiro's, basically, it's an online forum. There are so many women willing to help you, and there are so many people who are not going to judge you. If you feel judged in your space, that's not the space you need to be in. But there are tons of non-judgmental spaces out there.
Yeah.
Tap into them. Go out there. Don't feel like alone in this fight. Because many people, what I've realized over the past, during this lockdown phase, is more than one person is going through what you might be going through. Because many a times we think that, oh, maybe I'm the only one experiencing this. It'd be so silly for me to ask help for something like this. But just know that you're probably not the only one going through it. So just reach out to your circles, talk to them, and trust your instincts, because most of the time it's right. It's rarely that it's wrong, in my experience.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such a great session with you. And
Likewise.